Hola a todos, ¿cómo están? Soy Erika y bienvenidos a mi canal. Hi everyone, my name is Erica. Welcome to my channel. I'm a professional Spanish teacher who uploads video lessons here on YouTube, so if you're wanting to learn the language, you should definitely go and check out more of my videos. But for today's video, I'll be teaching you about when to use tú and when to use usted. So it's really important that you know the difference of when to speak informally and when to speak formally in Spanish, because you could end up insulting someone, and that's never good when you're talking with someone for the first time. So it's gonna be a rundown of when to use tú, when to use usted. I'll talk to you about the differences in the language so you can see it. And then we'll also go into ustedes and vosotros también, okay? It's gonna be a quick lesson, but it's gonna be super important, so you should definitely watch this video. All right, bueno, empezamos. Si te gusta el video, por favor suscríbete y bueno, vamos. Okay, so tú. When do we use tú? So tú is the informal way of saying you. So when I'm talking to someone using tú, the situation is immediately going to be informal. All right, when do I use it? It would be used by an older person talking to a younger person. So for example, if I'm talking to a 5-year-old, I would say tú. If my grandma is talking to me, she will say tú. My parents talking to me, they will say tú. Okay? So we use it for an older person talking to a younger person. Another time when to use it is for friends or family of the same age. So I'm going to call my best friend, I'll say tú. My sister, tú. People the same age as me that were like really close, were friends or family, I will say tú. Okay? If I'm talking to my parents or my grandparents who are not the same age as me and they are older than me, I can't use tú, okay? Or otherwise it's rude. Or if I want to insult someone, I will use tú, okay? That's why if you use tú in the wrong situation, it's going to be insulting or it's going to give you a really bad look, okay? So that's why this video is important. You need to know when to use tú and you need to know when to use usted, okay? And tú is for these situations. All right, let's go to usted. So I would say if you're going to a country for the first time and you don't know anyone, for the most part, I would say use usted because it's always going to be polite and it's always going to leave off a good impression, okay? All right, so usted. So this is you in the formal situations. It doesn't necessarily need to be formal like a black tie event or a big business meeting. It could also be just going to a store or talking to a doctor, just when you want to be extra polite to someone. All right? So when do we use it? We also use usted when talking to parents, grandparents, or in-laws especially, or in general, someone older than you. So when I talk to my dad, I would say usted, my grandparents, usted, my in-laws, usted, okay? If I'm talking to my boss or another teacher, I would also say usted, unless I'm really good friends with them. You should also use it when talking to professionals. So if you're speaking to your teacher, you should say usted. To a doctor, a police officer, a boss, anyone who's professional, or if you're in the professional environment, use usted, okay? Again, it's going to give you a really good look if you use it. So in general, someone you should show respect to, you use usted, okay? Now, let me go over some examples of sentences that use tú and sentences that use usted. Again, if you want to know how to conjugate differently, you will need to watch a specific video because I can't teach you all the different conjugations in this one, but I'm just going to show you some sentences so you can see the difference, okay? So for example, if I say, ¿Cómo estás? That's informal, right? Because I'm using estás, that's how you conjugate for tú. ¿Cómo está? Is more polite because that's how I conjugate for usted. Next, we have the preterite. So I have hablaste con el jefe ayer. So because I used hablaste, even though I don't have tú, like tú hablaste, it's immediately informal. However, if I'm talking to another coworker, I might say habló con el jefe ayer. So habló, it still means you formal, usted, okay? So it's usted formal. It's more polite, okay? ¿Me podrías ayudar? Informal. Or if I'm talking to a doctor, I might say me podría ayudar. Me podría ayudar is more polite. Te he llamado. Informal, less polite. Le he llamado is a lot more polite, okay? La bolsa es tuya, informal. La bolsa es suya, more formal, okay? So you will have to know how to conjugate this. That's why whenever I teach conjugations, whenever I teach new grammar, we always need to go through how to say it in both tú and usted, all right? Okay, so this is, now you know what situations you should be using it in. Let's jump into ustedes versus vosotros. Okay, so basically they both can mean the same thing. So vosotros is a plural form of the informal you. So if I want to say tú y tú, I would say vosotros in Spanish. And it's primarily used in Spain. Okay. Okay, ustedes now. So if you go to Spain, this can be kind of confusing. If you go to Spain and I say ustedes, that's the plural form of usted, right? It makes sense. So if I say usted y usted, I would say ustedes, right? And you conjugate that like ellos and ellas, okay? Now, this is a lot more simple. I think you could just, if you wanted, you could just speak Latin American Spanish and you could just say ustedes when you're talking about more than one person directly. So if I want to say you all, I would just say ustedes. And honestly, I find it easier to remember just this conjugation. So I use ustedes more often. And that just means you guys in general. So that's like the difference between vosotros and ustedes. You can use whichever one you want. Both are completely correct. It just matters how much more you want to memorize. All right, if you like this video, please give a thumbs up. Let me know if there's any other videos you want to see in the future, and I hope you enjoyed. Adios todos!